Have you ever spent the majority of a sprint planning meeting debating the difference between 1, 2, and 3 story points? Do your stand-ups ever turn into justifying my paycheck sessions? Ever been told, sorry, our team can't help with that. Our next sprints are already full for the next 6 months. How many times has your org tried to coordinate sprint lengths or ideal velocity? And how many times has that actually been successful? I call that behavior agile in name only, which is when we appear to be doing agile, but we aren't achieving agility. Here's the problem. So many organizations trying to do agile put so much effort into implementing mechanics and rules for agile that they end up choking off their agility. They focus on the do and miss out on the why. As a result, they struggle to realize any benefits from their effort. Now, here's what I've learned over the years. Struggling companies ask, are you doing agile? Successful companies ask, are you being agile? Hi, I'm Ryan Crow, a senior product manager here at Atlassian. Today, we're going to explore how to find the benefits of agile while avoiding the trap of agile in name only. We're going to strip away what we get wrong about agile and refocus on the core philosophies of agility. Then we'll see how we can use these concepts as a foundation to rebuild our approach to agile. And I'll give you some examples of how we work at Atlassian so you can see what these agile theories look like in practice. Be sure to stay tuned to the end when I'll be giving you a take-home challenge that you can do with your team today that can really help you level up your agile game. Now, what we'll be talking about today is universal to agile. So no matter your industry or your previous agile experience, there's something here for you. So come along with me as we explore what we get wrong about agile and how to truly find agility. Now, Voltaire tells us that it's important to start by defining our terms. So let's start by defining agile. Agile in this context is just a word used to describe an approach to work. And we've become so used to seeing capital A agile everywhere for the last 20 years that it's taken on extra significance and we've forgotten it's just an adjective. It just means agility. According to the Agile Alliance, the term agile was chosen as a label because it represented the adaptiveness and response to change that was so important to this new approach. So agile equals agility, and agility is about creating and responding to change. Now, I'm going to simplify that even further to adaptation. So agility is adaptation. When you work, are you able to create value by adapting to change? If so, congratulations, you're being agile. It's that simple. Now, when I think of the word adaptation, the first thing that comes to my mind is natural selection, right? Charles Darwin, theory of evolution. Because evolution is the study of how organisms adapted and changed over time. A theory that spun out of natural selection is survival of the fittest. Remember, what was being observed there was not that the most physically fit organisms were excelling, but those that fit best. The organisms that best adapted to fit their immediate local environment were the ones that were most likely to survive. And of course, the same is true in business. It's our ability to adapt to changing technologies, markets, and customer needs that makes us successful. Now, the difference between our companies and some little single-cell organism floating around in the primordial ooze is that we don't have billions of years to evolve. We have to be able to adapt and change now and in the right way. For business, time is a factor, and that's where Agile comes in. Now, we've talked about what Agile is, but let's talk about what Agile isn't. Planning in sprints, enforcing work in progress limits, writing user stories, estimating in story points, measuring velocity. Now, none of those things are bad or wrong, but you can do all of those things without being Agile. If you're not familiar with any of those terms I used, they're all pieces of popular Agile methodologies like Scrum, Kanban, and SAFe. Now, to be clear, I think Agile methodologies can be great, but they're tools to help us with our agility. They're a means to an end. They aren't the definition of Agile. When we start replacing Agile mindset with Agile methodology, that's Agile in name only. Think of it this way. Agile is a philosophy, not an orthodoxy. So what is the philosophy of Agile? Well, we know Agile is about change, but Agile isn't about change for the sake of change. That's chaos. We want to change for a purpose and to achieve a specific outcome. So our goal is to change in the right way at the right time for the right reasons. How do we figure out when and how to do this intelligent adaptation? By learning. Learning is the heart of Agile. You see, it's the cycle of learning and adapting that fuels growth. We learn by doing because that's what moves us through the cycle. Thus, Agile has a bias towards action because action creates double value. There's the value being created directly by the action, say the money you make selling your product, and the value created by learning from the action, say understanding how your customers are using your new product. And Agile also takes it one step further. See, change doesn't stop just at what we do, it continues into how we do it. You see, Agile wants us to help refine the cycle itself. It's the analysis and the meta-analysis. Now, if we hop back to our science and evolution theme, the Agile cycle is essentially the scientific method. In the scientific method, we observe, hypothesize, test, and conclude. What we learn from the conclusion leads us to our next hypothesis, and we go through the cycle again. And that's really all we're doing with Agile. We find a problem we want to solve, we design and build a solution, we release the solution to our customers, and we learn from their response. Just like the scientific method, Agile is a framework for learning, and it's active learning. It's not enough to just have a hypothesis. To generate learning, we have to test our hypothesis, and then we have to connect the test results back to the hypothesis to form a conclusion. To be Agile, we need that mindset. The desire to learn drives our actions because learning creates the momentum for growth. Okay, so we've talked through a lot of theory: agility, change, adaptation, learning. Here's your takeaway. If you want to get better at being Agile, get better at learning. But how do we actually do that? Well, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Key part of getting better at learning is that you have to learn what works best for your unique situation. We do that through iteration. Pick a place to start, make a change, learn, and adapt. It's the scientific method again. Now, I don't have a one weird trick for you that will solve all your problems, but I want to help you get started. So today, we're going to focus on 3 areas to help put our theories into practice. The first is building a culture of learning. The second is empowering your teams. And the third is creating value at scale. Now, these are crucial for any Agile practice, regardless of your industry, company size, or Agile maturity. Now, I could talk all day about these practices, but as much as I might tell myself otherwise, I know y'all didn't come to Team 2021 just to hear old Ryan Crow talk. So I'm going to give you a jumping off point so that you can start working through these practices with your teams and adapting them to meet your unique needs. As promised, I'm going to give you examples of what that work looks like here at Atlassian. So let's dive into our first practice that I want you to focus on: building a culture of learning. At a high level, having a culture of learning means 3 things. Your company values and promotes learning, your teams actively learn and share, and your teams have the time to learn. It's important to note that learning culture won't come about by accident. We have to purposefully work to build it. You see, learning can often be invisible. It's easy to see the results of learning, but we often miss all the effort we spent getting those results. And when effort isn't visible, it usually ends up being deprioritized, or even worse, skipped altogether. So what we need to do is shine a spotlight on learning. Teams that are better at learning are also better at taking smart risks. They know how to frame their risky change around a hypothesis. And even if the risk doesn't pay off, they're ready and able to immediately learn from it and keep moving forward. Here's how to kick off building a culture of learning today. Start by asking the question, if our primary value is learning, what does success look like, and how do we measure it? Let me share how Atlassian answers these questions with some practical takeaways. First and foremost, we shift our focus from the outputs of our work to the outcomes of our work. One of the most common questions you will hear asked at Atlassian during any planning activity is, how will this benefit our customers? The way we talk about our plans isn't, this is what we're building and here's why it's good. Instead, we reverse that to say, this is why we need to make things better for our customers, and here's what we can build to make that happen. We're not just product focused, we're customer focused. One of the ways outcome-based thinking shows up in our work is through OKRs. Objectives and key results, or OKRs, are our planning goals that lead with the desired outcome, the objective. Then we plan how we'll measure success by monitoring specific key metrics tied to the objectives. Those are the key results. Now, it's a great framework for learning because we need to learn about our outcomes up front, and we have to commit to ongoing learning by observing how our work affects our key metrics. Again, I could give you a whole talk just on OKRs, but I'll have to leave you with that tease. Now, if you want to learn more, I'll direct you to a resource you can access today, Atlassian's Team Playbook. We've got a whole play on OKRs that includes OKR templates in Confluence and Trello. And as a matter of fact, the Atlassian Team Playbook itself is my next example. Our Team Playbook is one of the main ways Atlassians share what we've learned about effective teamwork. It's a collection of activities and resources on overcoming common team challenges and starting important conversations. And these plays are the real deal. And we use these plays every day, and you can go check them out for yourselves at atlassian.com/team-playbook. Another one of the plays we run at Atlassian is the pre-mortem. Now, it's a learning exercise that helps us identify and mitigate risk up front. I'm sure many of you have done post-mortems after an incident where you go back and try to understand what went wrong. We do those too. Our pre-mortem is essentially a hypothetical post-mortem we run before we start work on a project so that we can build to avoid those negative outcomes. Tying back to our scientific method frame, the pre-mortem is like the hypothesis step and the post-mortem is like the conclude step. I want to spotlight one more learning practice we do here at Atlassian, blogging. We have a strong culture of blogging at Atlassian, and our blogs play a central role in how we share and promote learning. Confluence has built-in blogging tools. Each space, including personal spaces, has a blog section. When you want to write a blog, just create a new page in the space and choose the blog template. When you publish the page, it will automatically be sorted and shared as a blog. Now, at Atlassian, we blog about everything, from business critical topics like insights into our future in the cloud from leaders like Mike, Scott, and Anu, to lighthearted topics like how to paint wargaming miniatures from Atlassian's mini painting community. But what almost all of our blogs have in common is Atlassians sharing things they've learned. And blogging is such a central part of our culture that one of the first onboarding activities you'll do as a new Atlassian is write an intro blog. Like, not only is this a great way to get to know the new folks, it also helps reinforce our values of learning and openness. So our first practice is building a culture of learning. Now let's move on to our second practice, empowering our teams. What is an empowered team? Well, an empowered team has clear ownership of a problem space, and they've been given the authority and accountability to solve that problem. They're self-organizing, which means they get to figure out how to work most effectively. But they're not independent. They're still accountable to their leadership and the company, and they know how to seek out resources and collaborate with other teams. I like to summarize it with everyone's favorite Uncle Ben quote from Spider-Man, "With great power comes great responsibility." So why do we want empowered teams? Well, tactically, teams are the sweet spot for Agile. A team is big enough that they can contain a diversity of opinions, but small enough that decisions can be made quickly. A team is small enough that they can easily change and adapt, while being big enough to ship products and make an impact. Strategically, empowered teams lead to better outcomes because there's power in the drive of an engaged team. And don't take my word for it. In 2017, Gallup found that engaged teams led to increased profitability, increased customer ratings, increased sales, and lower employee turnover, all at double-digit percentages. And finally, from a values perspective, we all want to feel empowered. We don't want to feel like mindless drones. We should want our teams to be empowered because we want our people to feel engaged and valued. Now, let's talk about empowered teams at Atlassian and some more practical takeaways for you. So right off the bat, empowering teams is job number one at Atlassian because we build tools that help empower teams. We believe that behind every great human achievement, there is a team, and our mission is to help unleash the potential of every team. So everything we do at Atlassian is about the team. And that should come as no shock to any of you, considering you're at an event right now called Team 2021. So at Atlassian, empowering teams takes many forms. Let me start with a couple of ways we organize teams. Now, when it comes to team size, we generally try to aim for 2 pizza teams. A 2 pizza team means that you can feed the entire team with 2 large pizzas. Beyond that, the team may start struggling because there's just too many people to stay agile. Now, we also try to make our teams T-shaped. A T-shaped team is primarily concerned with going deep on their problem. That's the stem of the T, while also giving some thought to how they connect to other teams, right? That's the top of the T. And that model works really well because it allows our teams to focus without becoming siloed, which is especially important for teams building microservices. Okay, so we've identified our problem, we've formed a team to own the problem, and we know who's on the team. At Atlassian, we pretty much turn it all over to the team at this point and let them run with it. So let's talk about what that team does now. As a new team, our first order of business is to figure out how to be a team. Well, this is an easy step to skip as we often want to jump right into problem solving. But we have to know how to work together before we can work together. I think of this as finding the beat. It's crossing that fine line between a group of musicians each playing their own song and being a slick improv jazz band. Now, as I mentioned, our teams are self-organizing. That means we don't dictate what processes our teams have to follow, and we don't impose standards on how they use our tools. We let teams figure that out for themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that Atlassian's a crazy free-for-all with no coordination. It means that our teams work together to figure out how to standardize, to drive cross-team outcomes. And those standards evolve as the teams evolve. Essentially, as long as everyone can share and find the info we need to collaborate and ship awesome products together, no one cares if my team tracks work in Jira or Trello. We get to choose what works best for us, because our focus is on being agile and driving outcomes. Now, the outcome we're driving towards while finding the beat is a clarity on our team collaboration space. We're doing things like creating a Jira project, a Trello board, a Bitbucket repo, Confluence space, Slack channels, whatever we need to do so that we can say, this is where our team will collaborate. This is where and how we'll hash out ideas, make decisions, share updates. And we don't have to have everything figured out before we start work. We just need a place to start from. And we can adapt as we learn. And this has become an increasingly important step in the remote first world we're all living in now. And we have a whole section of the Atlassian team playbook that covers embracing remote teamwork. So if your team's been struggling with remote work, be sure to take advantage of that resource. Okay, so the teams got their collaboration space. They're ready to get to work. Teams, this is where the great power rubber meets the great responsibility road. We've got to grab the bull by the horn, stand and deliver, insert additional folksy idiom here. It's at this point when you start getting into the flow of project execution that you might want to start exploring some agile methodologies. Just remember, don't get bamboozled by agile in name only. Remember, the methodologies are tools and a means to an end. I'll also direct you to some resources in the team playbook if you want to learn more about how we execute at Atlassian. If you're new to Agile, run the plays in the Becoming an Agile Team section. They'll help you get used to working iteratively and building for continuous improvement. If you're more comfortable with Agile, check out the plays in Aligning on Agile Goals. They'll help you iron out priorities, drive action plans, and align to the big picture. Now, that last point, aligning to the big picture, segues us beautifully from the practice of empowering teams into our final practice for today, creating value at scale. Scale is an important topic in Agile because it's where most teams get tripped up. It's not too difficult to wrap our heads around empowering a single team, but it gets trickier when we have to keep multiple empowered teams all moving in the same direction. Creating value at scale requires us to find that sweet spot where we have enough alignment that our teams are able to solve big problems together while not asserting so much control over them that we've choked off their agility. Now, I've got another superhero reference here for you. Scaling Agile is like trying to take Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and the Hulk and turn them into the Avengers. They're all great superheroes, but they can only get so far on their own. What they need is a mission to bring them together. Go fight Thanos. Giving them a goal that they can only accomplish by combining their unique strengths will help them see that they're stronger together than they are apart. This brings us to leadership. There are two primary elements in the Agile equation: the teams who solve problems and the leaders who decide what problems to solve. Leaders are responsible for making sure the team has what it needs to succeed. And that doesn't mean only funding and headcount. Teams also need to understand the bigger picture they're a part of. They need the context to help direct their empowered decision-making. That's why at Atlassian, we think of leaders as chief context officers. They provide that context for their teams. We talked about T-shaped teams earlier. Leaders are the ones who connect all the T's together. With Agile, leaders are incredibly important because they manage the balance between control and autonomy. To keep an Agile company moving forward at scale, you need both. Leaders are the ones who course correct if we get too far to one side or the other. Once again, there's no one-size-fits-all solution here. Finding the right balance requires iteration and learning. Now, leaders aren't solely responsible for Agile value at scale. Teams have to learn how to use their autonomy for the benefit of the company, not just themselves. That means understanding their place in the bigger picture and supporting their leaders' efforts to paint that big picture. Here's your takeaway. You have to keep the relationship between teams and leaders mutually beneficial to successfully scale Agile. Let's talk about how we do that at Atlassian and some more practical takeaways for you. It all starts with one of Atlassian's core values: open company, no BS. See, we start from a place of open and honest communication. That helps the information flow between teams and leadership and ensures that everyone gets the context they need. It also allows folks to go out and learn on their own because information isn't hidden. That helps build trust and removes bottlenecks. On the leadership side of the Agile equation, Atlassian's leaders drive alignment by defining a clear vision and setting challenging goals. Then they over-communicate the why behind them and provide regular and frank status updates on our outcomes. This helps us all to be crystal clear on the context of what we're doing. And there are a couple of great Confluence templates we use that you can access today to help with communication. The first is the annual plan one-pager, which helps us all align on the goals for the year. Then there's the vision to values page, which helps connect those goals and strategies back up to our company's larger vision. Now, from the team side of things, our teams practice an up and out communication style. Instead of waiting for leadership or other teams to ask for information, our teams will take the initiative in creating and sharing important information and then pushing that out that communication to leadership and out to other teams. Because that communication and documentation originates with the team, we don't create a lot of redundant reporting work. The work we need to do is about collaboration, so a single output meets many needs. Here are some specific examples. Teams write project posters in Confluence for each of their projects. They help us drive alignment on the problem being solved and the proposed solution, and the path to execution. A project poster isn't something we write after we've figured everything out. It's a living document that evolves throughout the project lifecycle. It's a single collaboration point where our team can brainstorm and work out problems, leadership can provide context and get updates, and other teams can learn what we're working on to connect the T's. An important part of collaborating at scale is making decisions efficiently. We use the decisions template in Confluence and the DACI play to help us drive big decisions. Here again, our goal is collaboration. The Confluence page becomes the place to explore options, drive the decision, and then share the outcome. Then the page becomes an artifact we can reference and learn from in the future. The last team-side Atlassian practice I want to share is called the demo trust. And it's one of the best plays we have for driving alignment and trust between teams and leadership. Essentially, the team is presenting back to leadership that they understand all the context they've been given by demonstrating how their project will be valuable to customers and how it fits into the broader Atlassian strategy. Leaders then give the team feedback and direction, and it's a safe space for teams and leaders to spar. Here's the kicker. Our teams run this play proactively. We don't wait for our leaders to come to us with questions. We go to them with a demo trust. And there's something magical about it being proactive from the team, and it really does build an incredible amount of trust. So here's a takeaway for teams in Agile in-name-only companies. If you're having trouble kickstarting change, start running the demo trust. Show your leaders that they don't need to be worried. You've got this. Just because you're acting with autonomy and authority doesn't mean you're trying to cut them out. Not only do you want their input, but you're actively using it to be successful. The demo trust play is a good place to wrap up the value and scale discussion because it hits on the secret ingredient: trust. Empowering teams requires trust, and delivering at scale with many empowered teams requires even more trust. And change can make us nervous because change is a journey into the unknown. But when we're changing, it often means we're learning. So when we're scaling Agile, we're really trying to scale trust so that we feel supported to adapt and to be agile. And that starts by leaders and teams supporting each other. Let's do a quick recap of what we learned. Agile is a philosophy. It isn't an orthodoxy. Being agile just means working with agility. And agility means adaptation. It's creating and responding to change. Learning ensures we're changing for a purpose, and that's why learning is the heart of Agile. We need to build a culture of learning that drives Agile adaptations and shifts our focus from outcomes over outputs. We need empowered teams who own problems and have the authority and accountability to solve those problems. And to create value at scale, leaders need to work as chief context officers to keep teams aligned and moving forward. And we scale Agile by scaling trust. And we start by making the relationship between teams and leaders mutually beneficial. Now, you Agile pros out there may have noticed that there's something missing from what we talked about today that's kind of important to Agile: the Agile Manifesto. Well, astute of you to notice, hypothetical viewer, but haha, I didn't forget. See, I promised you a take-home challenge, and the time has come. Here it is. In the next 2 weeks, have an Agile Manifesto book club with your team. Get together with your team, read the Agile Manifesto, discuss, and share. It's that simple. It's the easiest book club you'll ever run. I mean, the manifesto is short. It's only like 7 lines. It's easy to find. It's at agilemanifesto.org, or just Google it. Now, after the book club, be sure to share what you've learned. If the book club was successful, hey, maybe you can take it on the road and repeat it with your other working groups, like other teams or your craft cohort, or up your management chain with your whole org, or heck, even your whole company. But no pressure. The challenge is just to start the conversation with your team. Now, if you're looking for ideas, I've got some discussion topics on screen. And my advice is to tie the manifesto back to what we've talked about today: learning, empowering teams, and value at scale. But again, don't stress. This is easy peasy. Just use this as an opportunity to take stock of your team, engage in some open dialogue, and learn from each other and build some trust. Now, before we go, I'd like to leave you with these final words for your Agile journey. Seek first to understand. Remember, the heart of Agile philosophy is learning. Learning unlocks change, and change allows us to adapt and create value. To learn, we must listen to our customers, to the market, to data, of course, but also to each other. Agile is a transformation. It's a change to embrace change, and change is scary. So listen, learn, and be gentle with each other. Remember, you can learn more about the plays from my examples in the Atlassian Team Playbook, and you can find the templates I showed in Confluence. If you've got any questions, come find me and the rest of my fellow Atlassians in the Atlassian community for some Q&A. We'd love to chat with you. I'm Ryan Crow. I thank you for your time today, and I wish you the best of luck in your Agile journey.